What's good out there, everybody? It's your boy, the worthy one, never the two, and we back. Oh yeah, we back, man. It feels good to be back too. It really feels good. Let me get comfortable in here. Yeah, the levels are good, and it's good to be back with you guys. I hope that everybody enjoyed their weekends. You spent some time with friends and family and loved ones. You know, you relaxed, maybe enjoyed the beach. And most importantly, I hope that you kept love first. Meditated, got outside around some of the nice weather that was going on. Whatever it is that you did, I'm glad to have you right back here with me. And in today's episode, man, we're going to get into Joe Rogan and Graham Hancock. Graham Hancock is an author of Fingerprint of the Gods, I believe. A very good author and a very forward thinker. And in this episode, he's going over ancient world maps. Now, what does that mean to us? You may wonder. So these ancient world maps, what they depict is showings of Antarctica. And the question is, who drew these maps over 10,000 years ago before the last ice age, when we weren't supposed to be traveling at that time? Do you understand what's going on here? I mean, they don't want you to know what they don't want you to know. Nonetheless, we still bringing it, we still going to always try to go for something. And, they say the best way to hide something from a man is to keep it in a book. And then now in this visual realm, on YouTube and things like that, it's a lot of people who not spreading the truth out there, but this ain't one of them. This ain't one of them stations. This is the Worthy Network, and I'm not going to hold back the information, so we're going to get right into this. It's only a few minutes long, so I hope that I can keep, you with me for you to let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you feel about what we went through in today's episode, and we're going to get back to it, but I'm not going to hold back. So with no further ado, let's get to it.
In a world where we often think we have uncovered all the secrets of the past, a conversation between Joe Rogan and Graham Hancock on the Joe Rogan podcast reveals a fascinating story of ancient seafaring cultures. While archaeology acknowledges the Polynesian expansion as the first great seafaring adventure, Hancock questions the evidence and points to DNA evidence from the Amazon and ancient maps as proof of a global navigating culture in the Ice Age. The discovery of an old map that shows the world as it looked during the last Ice Age, incorporating precise relative latitudes and longitudes, is hard to explain. What could this mean? Was there an advanced civilization that existed long before ours that had mastered the art of ocean navigation?
When archaeologists talk about seafaring humans, what do they date that to?
The great seafaring adventure that is accepted by archaeology is called the Polynesian expansion, and it's a remarkable story, and that occurs roughly 3,000 to 3,500 years ago. And those Polynesians were amazing ocean navigators. They could cross distances of thousands of kilometers with pinpoint accuracy. I mean, it's not an accident that the Polynesians found Easter Island. Finding Easter Island is a really challenging project. Easter Island is 2,000 miles from the coast of South America. It's 2,000 miles from the nearest other island, which is Tahiti. It's just a little speck in the middle of the ocean, but the Polynesians found it and settled there and appear to have brought a reproductively viable population there and appear to have made voyages back and forth. But that was 3,000 to 3,500 years ago. That was not 12,800 years ago. And this is where archaeology's adamant position that ocean voyaging was begun by the Polynesians and that there was no major ocean voyages before that, I think needs to be strongly questioned, and it needs to be strongly questioned in the light of this DNA evidence from the Amazon rather than rejecting the evidence. An attempt should be made to consider what that might mean.
Well, it's interesting because we know that the Egyptians had boats.
Yeah.
And so, if there were boats 4,500 years ago, why do we think that they didn't try them out in the ocean? That doesn't make any sense, especially if they existed 1,000 years prior, which is also possible.
Archaeologists wouldn't argue that the Egyptians had boats, but that is still within the framework of accepted history. It's the notion of a global navigating culture in the Ice Age that archaeologists can't swallow. It's a subject that I've kept on coming up against over a number of years. I think the best evidence for it is ancient maps, which show the world as it looked during the last ice age. We're talking about maps that were drawn roughly between the 1300s and the 1700s. In other words, in relatively recent history. However, these maps were largely based on much older source maps, which they copied. And we can say that for sure, because one of the famous maps is the Piri Reis map, which was created by a Turkish admiral called Piri Reis in the year 1513. Actually, only a corner of his map has survived. It was originally a world map. We now just have a bit that shows the east coast of South America and North America and the west coast of Africa. Piri Reis writes in that map that it is in his own handwriting that he based it on more than 100 older source maps, some of which had come from the Library of Alexandria. In other words, that maps had been, when the Library of Alexandria had been destroyed in the 4th century AD or whenever it was, some of its contents had been rescued and brought to Constantinople, which became the Turkish capital, and Piri Reis had access to those maps, and he incorporated information from those maps on his maps, as well as incorporating more recent navigational information. And this is one of a whole category of maps which are extremely hard to explain. All of them based on older source maps, now lost, all of them incorporating extremely precise relative longitudes and latitudes. Latitude is not that difficult a technological feat, but longitude is a difficult technological feat. Longitude involves a chronometer. It involves knowing the time at the place you began your voyage and the local noon as well, and calculating the difference between them. You need a chronometer that will keep accurate time at sea with the motions of a ship. And it's just a plain fact that our civilization did not invent such a chronometer until the late 18th century. Before that, we didn't know what longitude we were at, and ships were constantly sailing unexpectedly into coastlines that they thought were hundreds of miles further away. So the discovery of the technique to do longitude was a major civilizational advance. Its presence in maps based on much older source maps that actually show the world as it looks during the last ice age suggests that somebody during the last ice age was mapping the world and had mastered the technique of calculating longitude.
Did you know that you could be generating 10 grand a month or more by simply teaching other people what you already know?
I hate commercials.
Classic example of these maps, and I make a point of this, is what's called the Pinkerton World Map, which was drawn in the year 1818, and it was based on the latest navigational information at that time. I reproduced that map in the book. What's missing from the map, entirely missing, is Antarctica. There's just a hole at the bottom of the world. There's nothing there. The reason that Antarctica is not there is that our civilization hadn't discovered Antarctica in 1818. So they couldn't authentically put it on a map in 1818. Actually, we discovered it in 1819, and that's when it starts appearing on modern maps. The problem is that Antarctica appears repeatedly on these much older maps, and it appears in the right place and a bit bigger than it is today, but very much as it looked during the last ice age. So what all of this suggests to me is that the world was mapped and explored by a global seafaring culture with a level of technology that was at least equivalent to ours at the end of the 18th century during the ice age.
Wasn't there also a map of Greenland that showed it underneath the ice?
Yes, there are. And another intriguing thing, I mentioned the Piri Reis map just now. Shown on the Piri Reis map, lying off the east coast of North America, is a large island with a row of megaliths, like a road of megaliths, running up the middle of it. That island is in the exact place of the Grand Bahama Banks. So this island is sitting there off the southeast coast of North America.
Look at the way they used to draw things back then, too.
And what you see running down the middle of it is this road-like feature of megaliths. I'll point them
Yes,
out again.
I see right there, yeah.
These here. These here. Now, the thing is, there was a long period of my life when I did a lot of scuba diving, and I was looking at underwater structures. And one of the sites I dived on was the Bimini Road, which is in the Grand Bahama Banks. And the Bimini Road is exactly where that island is. And here's the issue. I don't care whether the Bimini Road is natural or man-made. For me, the mystery is that it is shown above water on that map. And the last time it was above water was thousands and thousands of years ago. So for me, this is all evidence that we shouldn't dismiss.
So we're going to stop that right there. Hey, man, that was crazy. That was crazy. It's up. So let me get this music together. I always got to get the music going. But yeah, so how'd you guys feel about that, man? I told you it was only going to be a few minutes. Graham Hancock did a superb job of breaking down ancient maps and relics, and and how they relate to the maps that we have now, and how were these people able to depict maps before the Ice Age? That's more than 10,000 years ago. The last Ice Age was more than 10, maybe 11,000 years ago. So people were traveling and circumnavigating this globe before then. If not, then how did they get depictions of maps and show you Greenland and show you Antarctica and to such a degree if they weren't people out here doing cartography, if there weren't people navigating these oceans, which means ultimately going to other continents? Now we get into other discoveries and mixing of people, and now we get a better understanding of the world that we live in, which makes it so relevant, which makes everything right now so relevant as to what I'm saying, because in more recent episodes, I spoke about how, black people could be indigenous to the Americas. And whether you believe that or not, whatever you want to believe, we know that people have been traveling this globe far longer than, mainstream science likes to lead on, and especially lead us to believe, which I thought was pretty interesting, and especially when he gets into, maps being stolen from Alexandria out in Egypt. This is during the time of Alexander the Great, when they came and conquered in Egypt, one of the 4 or 5 times that Egypt was conquered. And using this information to chart out territories that we previously didn't know existed. But you would have to wonder, then why did they have boats? Those boats are not just sitting in museums just because they look nice. They use these boats to travel. They use these boats to go around the world and, chart new territory. And it's very interesting. It caught my attention over the weekend, and I could not wait to bring it here for you guys to get a glimpse of, get a load of this, to see what's going on out here. It's so much information out here. Sometimes I don't like to go down the rabbit hole because, sometimes you can't get back out of those holes. But nonetheless, I wanted to, get some fresh sets of ears and eyes on this. Maybe help me out with this understanding as to these ancient maps, and, listen to your words and your points of view to see if maybe we can come to a more conclusive understanding as to how these maps existed before the 1800s, 1700s, and even before then, because there were more ancient maps before then. But how were they able to show Antarctica to such a degree when this is a frozen continent? Now, lastly, Graham Hancock got into, Bimini Road, and this is in the Bahamas. This is a place what we call the Bermuda Triangle, and this is very relevant because a lot of things have happened around this location in this geographical area, where there's some sort of magnetic pull that sort of just messes with the navigational systems of boats, and people get lost, and boats even have been reported lost, disappeared, never to be seen again in this location. So how was this place in ancient maps first found right off the coast of North America, but it was shown above the water at that point in time, and now it's underwater, and there, scientists want to say that these roads were naturally created by nature, but there's a place that is talked about in ancient texts and writings, and we have not been able to locate that place. And that place is called Atlantis. And that was supposed to be more futuristic than anything else at the time, more than Egypt, which was the most highly advanced civilization of the time that we know of. So that's crazy. Nonetheless, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for taking time out to watch the latest episode here on the Worthy Network. I try to bring a few new things. I have my logo going on. Hope that you like it. I'm still going to continue to take time out and make sure that I'm spending my days with you. Make sure that you meditating, drinking water, getting some sunlight, getting into you. Get into yourself, man. Get into yourself. And sometimes if you don't have the energy, to get into yourself, let nature provide some of that sustenance for you. Get outside, just take a walk. It was a beautiful weekend. It's looking like it's going to be a beautiful week. Once again, we'll be right here tomorrow on the Worthy Network. This is what we do. And with that being said, don't forget to like, definitely comment. I want to hear the comments. I want to see what you have to say, whether you agree with some of these things or not. And then after that, let's subscribe and let's keep it going as we go on the road to 1,000 subscribers. It's your boy, the Worthy One, not the two.